Our halftime headliner literally has written a book on Bitcoin. Anthony Scaramucci is the founder and managing partner of SkyBridge Capital, the author of The Little Book of Bitcoin, What You Need to Know That Wall Street Has Already Figured Out. It's good to see you. Congrats on this new book.
Thanks, Scott.
I mean, what an amazing time. What an amazing time to not only have the book, but for us to have you. What do you think this moment signifies?
The 100,000 moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think obviously it's a big moment, but I think it's really just the beginning. And you've had me on before, and I've had my ups and downs with Bitcoin. We started buying it in October of 2020. At 17, it went to 69,000, and then unfortunately, I think it went back down to 15,000. And so I've been a hero and a goat in Bitcoin over the years.
But you've been a hodl, though, right?
I have.
You have. That's the thing.
We've held on, yeah. So we've held on. Our clients have benefited. They're 5 to 1, 6 to 1 on our Bitcoin investment, depending on entry point. But I really do see this as an asset class, and I think that was the point of the book. And I was very happy to get Michael Saylor to write the foreword, although he did yell at me, made me change the last chapter of the book, Scott, because I was recommending in the back of the book a 2% allocation, and Michael said to me, well, do you have 50 other ideas as good as this? I said, I don't. And he said, well, okay, well, then you have to rewrite the last chapter, just implying that people could start at a 1 or 2, but they could think more broadly. And I think that's where we are right now. If it's an asset class, it will trade to $18 trillion where gold is. It's probably at $2 trillion right now at that $100,000 number. So I think it's still the beginning.
Saylor's trying to write his own chapter, obviously, in his company's place in all of this. Do you feel like we're at an inflection point, again, another one as it relates to the new administration, what is widely expected to be much more friendly, in quotes, if you will, towards this asset class that you suggest it is?
Yeah, and I think this was a fundamental failure by the Democrats, actually. They had the same opportunity that the Republicans did. They took for granted the crypto investors. They took for granted the lobbying around crypto. I think Fair Shake, I think, Josh, you probably looked at this. I know you've written about it. Fair Shake won 48 out of 48 elections. They put their money up. They knocked Sherrod Brown out of his seat. He was the head of the Senate Banking Committee. And so I think the President Trump, who I saw speak at the Bitcoin conference last July, is putting a pro-Bitcoin team in place. It's a combination of Vicente and Atkins and others. And I think it's good for America. Jerome Powell said yesterday at Andrew's deal book that this was a competitor to gold. It's not necessarily a competitor to U.S. dollar. And I think if we think about it that way, the American government can get very comfortable with Bitcoin as being part of a portfolio asset allocation strategy. Again, the dollar will remain supreme. We do need stablecoin legislation in the next congressional term, I think. That will help the whole industry. And just remind people, there are stablecoins like Tether and Circle that own huge swaths of U.S. Treasuries. And I think Tether right now.
Actually, a Saylor question.
Yeah, sure.
So now your book party this week. Barry Ritholtz was there. Michael Saylor was there. I'm just curious. You're watching what this guy is building. He's now got a $100 billion market cap. Had you ever thought along the way, what if SkyBridge builds a Bitcoin reserve? Like, what would that mean to the people that are already investing with SkyBridge, people that have clients on the platform? You almost could have, beat them to the punch because you sort of were the first hedge fund platform to incorporate these assets in a traditional finance setting. You did this before anybody.
Well, I appreciate it. I took my lumps for doing it, and I think,
but you did it.
Some of the wirehouses yelled at me for doing it, but I think clients that stayed with us have been rewarded. And we sort of have had a Saylor strategy, frankly. Not allowed to talk about our performance, but just think of these numbers. If Bitcoin was 17,000 when I bought it, and it's 100,000 today, and we had a 40% position in Bitcoin, you can imagine we're doing very well at SkyBridge.
Get your calculators out.
Yeah, get your calculator out. You imagine we're doing very well. And so the reason why Michael and I are close is that we see things the same way, and we do have a Bitcoin standard at SkyBridge where we have a ton of our balance sheet in Bitcoin, and we were the first, or maybe among the top 10 first companies to go into Fidelity, Josh, and have our IRAs enabled in Bitcoin. So you can buy up to 5% Bitcoin in your retirement portfolio at SkyBridge. And so, yeah, listen, we had to adapt and pivot our business. I've been on the air where I've taken blows. We got hit very hard in March of 2020. We were in a lot of structured credit then. Had the worst year of my life, and I think 12 trading days in the month of March of 2020. And we had to pivot ourselves. And so we made the decision, and thank God it's working now. But trust me, like you, Josh, I've been humbled by life and market. So
sure.
I'm knocking on wood and hoping things continue in the trajectory that we think that it will.
You have such great perspective on it because you've literally lived through the turbulence of the growing up of this asset. You've seen the scammers, the shysters, the phonies, the fraudsters in many respects, and here we find ourselves on what is a major milestone. What does that mean?
I was 6'4", Scott, when I made my first Bitcoin investment, but look at me now.
But you know what I'm saying? I mean, you've seen it from such a close level. Have we fully grown up yet? Are we still in danger of some of that nonsense that took place?
I think we've grown up, and I think we have to be objective about President Trump. I think he saw quickly that this is an industry that the United States needs to be in. If you want to maintain your mantle of financial services leadership, you got to get the regulation right in this industry. But I will say something about Gary Gensler that people would not expect me to say. He actually helped the industry. Perhaps it was accidental. When he didn't approve the spot or cash Bitcoin ETF right after the futures ETF was approved, he probably helped the industry.
In 20.
Yeah, so the futures. No. Futures were approved November of 21. The expectation pursuant to the law was that the cash would have been approved in the first quarter of 22. He blocked and delayed it. He lost the lawsuit subsequently. But I think that exposed all of those grifters and some of the fraudsters and lots of leverage. It wiped out 3 or 4 big companies. Took out through bankruptcy things like BlockFi, et cetera. So weirdly, he helped the industry because he cleaned out a lot of the dregs in the industry, if you will. And so now when it eventually got approved and you brought people in like Fidelity and BlackRock, it sort of solidified the institutional story, Scott.
Is the message that the individual investor who is going to pick this book up and they see 100K, and if they're in it already at levels even close to you, they feel tremendously great. If they're not, they're wondering whether it's too late. They read the book and your message seems to be it's not too late, that there's going to be not maybe a straight line higher, but nonetheless you're as optimistic today as you have been in the past?
Yeah, look, it's a high volatility asset, susceptible to lots of corrections, but I think the message is, if this is an asset class in a digital economy, is this digital gold, or what Michael Saylor says, digital property? We think the answer is yes. We tell a lot of stories in this book about how different people came to Bitcoin. What I would say to everybody here is, if you do the research on Bitcoin, you go towards Bitcoin. These are people like Paul Tudor Jones or Stanley Druckenmiller. I know very few people that have done the homework, Scott, and then say, oh no, Bitcoin's not for me. And I do think it'll be part of a long-term tactical asset allocation strategy, meaning portfolios will have 1%, 2%, 3%, 4% in Bitcoin. And so, yes, it is early. And if it is an asset class, there's probably 10x to go in Bitcoin. And again, it won't be even. And it won't happen immediately, but I think over the next 5 to 10 years, we can see that happen.
Certainly. I mean, we're talking about alternatives all the time, and people certainly think that this should be part of whatever crypto strategy you have should be part of that. Congrats again.
Hey,
it's the little book of Bitcoin. Anthony Scaramucci here to help make sense of it on a day where we have 100K.
Hermes orange, Scott. Hermes orange.
You pick them well. That's Anthony joining us here.